What a day here in round 13 of the 2024 candidates. We had two decisive games in the open section. Gukesh taking the sole lead in the tournament for the first time by defeating Alireza Firouzja with the white pieces, and Caruana in a must-win situation with black to keep a pace with the leaders. He did it against Prague. So those are big results of the day. The game between Nepo and Naka definitely started out in a promising way, but eventually the players acquiesced to a draw with a threefold repetition before too much blood could be spilled.
Yeah, that game ultimately kept them both at 8 points. As we look at the standings after round 13, you see Gukesh on top of everyone, a half a point ahead from the chasing pack of Jan, Hikaru, and Fabiano. And you know, the stage is sort of set for tomorrow, Irina.
Yeah, I mean, you can see how far the four players have separated themselves from the rest of the tournament. And I think this is the first time in the event that Gukesh is the sole leader. Before, he's always had to share the lead with Nepo. So it's taken him 13 rounds to get to the top. Let's take a look also at the women's results. We have Tan Zhangyi making a quiet draw with the white pieces against Garyachkina, not wanting to risk anything. And because Vaishali continues her winning streak of 4 games in a row, it actually throws Lei Tingji to a 1-point deficit behind Tan, making it somewhat difficult for her to catch up to her. I mean, it's not really going to be in her hands anymore tomorrow. So Tan Zhangyi is in a great position to win this candidates tournament.
Yeah, and we have to talk about Vaishali, who's really rocketed up the standings, tied for third with that, which was her 4th win in a row. You know, imagine that she concludes this event with another win. That's a top 3 finish.
That would be
5 in a
amazing.
row. It's just absolutely insane. But yeah, that one looks like Tan only needs a draw to secure the candidate's victory tomorrow.
Well, let's take a look at the games of the day. So shall we start with the big one between Gukesh and Firouzja?
Yeah.
Their opening was quite interesting and really felt like it was going nicely for Firouzja. He played this restricting move, knight, not letting the knight come to f5. But I feel like he made a mistake kind of early with this imprecise move, rook e8, which allowed white to come out with bishop a4. Not sure if he, missed this move or underestimated it, but it was kind of awkward for the rook. And this rook move really wasn't necessary. But he still was fine. He was keeping the balance. Just that he was forced to trade off the center space in order not to lose any pawns. And then there came a phase of maneuvering. Looks like it was heading towards a draw as the pieces were coming off the board. But Firouzja remained ambitious.
Yeah, I think that's kind of the story of this entire game is he always remained ambitious when the balance was there. I think after, as we continue on here, you'll see that Gukesh goes for this move f4 soon. I thought that was an important moment as well, where he just kind of locked it up because he was scared that the move f4 from Firouzja, the ambitious player here, he's always ready to attack, and he never played it.
I was just wondering, could black have had a chance to actually play f4 in this moment before the pawns got blockaded? Of course, there's things to calculate. You got to look at queen g4, but it does appear like this move was possible. Maybe Firouzja should have gone for it because pretty soon Gukesh played this very important move blocking those pawns. But Firouzja, he's just irrepressible.
Yeah, no, you can't stop him from attacking. The move g5 was thrown in, and the interesting thing is after g5, it was unclear who was going to make better use of the g file, and the move g5 also weakened the f5 pawn permanently. And for the rest of the game, it felt like he was stuck defending a pawn that he didn't, he's like, I didn't sign up for this.
Yeah, I mean, white got the easier position to play with this knight that's blocking the passed pawn on e4, attacking this one. It was easier, but it was balanced, and they repeated moves for a while right here.
Yeah.
Right before the time control day began. So black was trying to get their queen out, white brought the rook in, and then Firouzja was just like, okay, let's trade. And Gukesh was like, no. So we repeated a bit, And this was, I think, the key decision of the whole game where Gukesh decides, all right, let's keep the ball rolling. We're not doing a threefold repetition. And I just think that this decision was very akin to Ding declining the repetition in his win in the tiebreak game with Nepo.
Yeah, completely agree. And there's a moment here where white could have taken on g6 and black would take with the h pawn. And I only mention that because I think that played into his decision later, because this would be fantastic for Firouzja, but the queens are on the board. And so later, Irina, we saw this honestly slightly inexplicable decision from Alireza a couple moves later when things were under control, and he went for queen to g6 in reaction to queen g5. We were thinking he needed to play the much more active knight to e6. Although this gives up a pawn, you can solve your issues tactically here and make it perpetual, if not more. So it was surprising that with so much time on his clock, Alireza didn't go for that. Instead offered a queen trade going into that pawn structure, but with the queens off the board, it was not as good.
I mean, actually looking at the time usage is shocking. He spent less than a minute on this losing decision, and he had 21 minutes.
Yeah.
10 minutes more than Gukesh, and he certainly could have used his time more wisely. So this move is hard to explain from any points of view other than Gukesh was destined to win this game after he declined the repetition.
Yeah, you make those decisions, those fighting choices, and they sort of pay off for you. The conversion, it had its moments, almost like a flickering candle, but it was always burning. I mean, it looked flawless when you think about it. The pawns started pushing on the queen side, and he never looked back as Alireza was struggling, but ultimately very clean conversion from Gukesh, and this win set him a half point ahead of the entire field going into the final round.
Well, the other big game of the day, I guess we can maybe look at it briefly, was between Nepo and Naka, just because everyone was watching that game, and even though it ended in a draw, we felt like at some point after the opening, White's position was looking quite promising, but Nepo played this part of the game really quite tentatively. And starting with his bishop c2 move, Hikaru actually played really well. He was playing super accurately with these pawn moves.
Yep.
And when he got Nepo to put the knight back, I mean, it was starting to feel like, hey, maybe black could win this game.
Absolutely. And this was after sort of a cagey sideline opening by Hikaru that he needed to justify. And it didn't look good at the very beginning. But yeah, you're right. Once Hikaru kind of settled into his position, started kicking that knight around, queen g5, I mean, Hikaru looked like he was going to flip the game and maybe start playing for a win.
Yeah, I mean, when I was analyzing this with Grandmaster Ivan Chiparinov, who joined us in the studio, d5, he said, by Nepo was a very, brave move because it looks so dangerous, like your pawn is going to get attacked and this knight can constantly come in. But it was actually holding together for White in all the lines. Hikaru played a move that we hadn't even considered, this very cool pawn move, using the fact that there's no en passant, trying to go b5, c4. And Nepo found a clever way to basically get the draw by withdrawing his knight. And then we were spectators to this whole next few moves where the players both look really unhappy about what's going on and no one wants to claim the draw. But it was kind of clear they were going to agree to it. I mean, I think from Nepo's point of view, that's for sure logical. I mean, could Hikaru have kept the game going with a move like this? Well, that's a question, right? He's not really better, but I suppose, he could have looked for ways to keep playing. But objectively speaking, it seems like this repetition made sense.
Yeah, and neither one of these players at this point would know the results of other games. So, a draw maintaining the lead at this point is certainly a decent result for both.
And finally, we had Caruana versus Prague, a super long endgame. I mean, honestly, it looked like Fabiano was doing well after Prague messed up the middle game. But at some point, we get to a position like this where White is down in exchange, but it's really hard for Black to make progress because most of the board is locked up.
Yep. No, this was a position that I have to admit, just looking at it, I didn't see the breakthrough. You had full faith in Fabiano, even identifying the exact plan that was necessary and that he ended up going for here, Irina, when he, a couple moves from now, played bishop to e7 to d8. This plan of pushing the pawn to a5 and then king to a6, finally getting the move b5 to happen, that was the ultimate breakthrough that Fabi needed, and that's where his push came from.
Yeah, let's talk about the bets of the day, how it went fairly well for me today, because I have a running bet with Vichy on the number of decisive games in the Open, and at some point we thought it could be 4 draws today.
Truly.
Where no one would win the bet, but in fact, there were 2 decisive games ultimately. So I actually continued my winning streak there. And then we also had a new bet between us, Aman. I think the bet was really that Fabi would try to eke water out of a stone, was the way I put it. Like, there was no way this game was going to end in some draw. And I think he eventually did, right? We knew that that's how it was going.
He did. And honestly, even if Fabi had drawn that game, his effort, I would have still given. I would have said, you still won. Because he really did try. And I didn't see the plan to try that much. But that a5, I completely missed it. And Fabiano saw it the whole way.
So Fabiano gets a big win, making it 3 in a row for him, but still he is half a point behind Gukesh. So we're set up for a super exciting finale at the Candidates tournament. Will Gukesh become the youngest player to challenge for the World Championship at 17 years old? He has a tough job tomorrow playing with the black pieces against Naka. While Fabiano and Nepo are in a position, I think, where they really... it's hard for them to know what's going to happen in that game. They just have to play their own game. Fabiano, he's tied now with Nepo, so he's not even behind him, right? Like, they both just need to win.
That's exactly right. Gukesh is a half point ahead of everybody, so we have all of the leaders, everyone vying for first place, is in a match with each other, so it's the perfect combination for the final round. And basically, Fabiano and Jan need Hikaru to win. A win or a draw. Definitely can't lose, or Gukesh is uncatchable. So, and the thing is that Jan and Fabi also both need the same result, a win.
Right. Because, if Naka wins and they only draw, that's still really bad for them. So one of them needs to win tomorrow. So Caruana Nepo has to be like a decisive game for it to make any sense for either of them. Yeah,
there's just no world where they draw and somehow get through. It can't happen. So that just sets the stage for fireworks. I'm even saying that out loud. I feel like I just came to that conclusion as we were discussing it, and I was like, okay, this is going to be insane. I can't wait.
Well, guys, we'll see you tomorrow for round 14 at the Candidates, and it's a day that you're not going to want to miss.